The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Forge Fitness and Nutrition LLC, the podcast hosts, owners, employees, contractors, partners, or affiliates. This presentation may include the use of explicit language. Listener or viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Forge Fitness, Nutrition, and Habit podcast. We aim to dive into wellness, science, controversial opinions, and meet with expert guests to just clear the clutter. Hosted by me, Michael S. Parker, and wellness professional with over 2 decades of experience. I'm also the author of the 90-Day Habit Transformation. I'm the founder of Forge Fitness and Nutrition Coaching, one of the top-ranked online coaching companies. Anyhow, this show dives into fitness, nutrition, habit change, and the cultural chaos around wellness. It's hard-hitting, honest, and hopefully entertaining. It's your dose of truth in a world full of fads and rank bullshit. Joining me today for our very first episode is my dear friend, longtime client. She's an actor, screenwriter, and producer, Sarah Malby. She will be a frequent guest and co-host whenever she's able. And her insight, her charm, her intelligence, and her humor, they're just going to be a lovely addition. And I'm super excited about that. I would also like to thank our brand manager, Heather Turning, for the incredible amount of hard work that she's been doing on the back end to get this going. Website, logo, social media, her graphic efforts, all of that stuff. And then finally, all the amazing wellness coaches that are part of the Forge team. That includes Cameron, Millie, Samantha, and Tate, all of whom will be participating frequently on the show. And they're absolutely the backbone of our organization. Now, with all that said, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and she's going to tell you probably a little bit more about herself, and we're just going to transition straight into it, and we're going to just get this show started. So, Sarah, let's do it.
I feel like I need to give you a standing ovation for that introduction, Michael, because I'm pumped already. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's do this. We met because I was getting married, I think, and I needed a boost, a training boost, and we've had a very long journey together. We became friends. We've seen me through all of my approaches to fitness, which have been, how would you phrase that? Questionable at times.
Interesting.
It's interesting, yes, interesting. But that gives me a good perspective because I feel like I've been victim to a lot of these trends and fads that we're going to talk about today, and with your support, been able to emerge more educated, more rounded, more grounded on the other side of it. Yeah, I'm a filmmaker, I'm an actress, writer, producer, all of that fun things. But for this podcast, the most important thing is that I am a client and hopefully a success story client, and not a success in the way that people go, oh, you lost 50 pounds. That was your goal, success. A success in the way it means I have absolutely managed to transform my mentality around health, around fitness, life in general, I think.
I guess I would turn that back to anybody who's listening or watching. Well, how do you define success, and what does that mean to you? Then I think that you're in a better position to be in a space of understanding about yourself that makes us a lot more well-rounded. And then we understand that success doesn't necessarily mean obsession, which you've done a really good job with over time.
Obsessed with only which most people are when they approach fitness, is like the end goal is all that matters, and the journey is completely neglected, and almost like that's why the quick fix obsession comes into play. And what you were instrumental in my journey is helping to set realistic goals, which sound very unsexy. And when you're in the place of like, I just want to lose 20 pounds, having someone say, what's your realistic goal, can be off-putting psychologically. So you have to break down all of that stuff, because actually realistic goals, as I have come to learn, are the ones that you, one, can achieve, and therefore not only feel good about yourself, self-esteem boost, all of that stuff, but you look good. Because, me trying to look like Cameron Diaz is never going to happen because I don't have that body type. But if I look at, a celebrity that has body type I do have, that's something where I can veer towards. And that was a huge game changer for me to understand, okay, what it is and what it's not, because a lot of these myths around fitness start with like influencers or people promoting do this and look like me, and not having the audience understand that you have to have certain factors in place in order to look like them genetically, basically, right? And for you as a fitness professional, Michael, what is the thing that just got you so Gordon Ramsay level passionate about these influences, about these promises.
I think the best way is to start with that I had a curiosity to work in the wellness industry quite early. I had this sensation that a career in fitness and nutrition could be rewarding. It served almost as a method of providing for myself and my family, but I got to help others. So yeah, I think I found it attractive from the symbiotic standpoint. And that fostered my passion to add value, especially within my sphere of influence. And then I realized how wide this universe of fitness and nutrition really was. I started basically like everyone else in a chain of fitness centers. And that was in year 2000. And the combination of what I initially perceived to be a positive environment, because you all assume that, being in fitness and nutrition is positive, right? I learned later that that's not necessarily the case. But I did see a potential for career growth and an opportunity to make a difference in the community by way of fitness and nutrition.
Can I quickly add to that? Sorry to interrupt you, Michael, but I think it's really important what you said there is that people need to realize just because something is dressed up as being healthy or good for you, it can actually be very toxic.
Oh, well, an extreme in every way can become toxic.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just really interesting that that's what, you notice going into it. It's so great and healthy for you. And actually, like what, psychologically, physically toxic or just,
Well, both. Both, because, there's a psychological aspect that's usually the catalyst for the desire to change. But there's something that we perceive, and then we want to move towards an action. There's a behavior set that we're trying to identify that will lead to some kind of an outcome. And fitness and nutrition can be extraordinarily toxic, but they should not be. And that's what we're going to do is we're going to take all of that pain, the desperation about the way that they look, the way that they feel, the way they perform, the way that they think others perceive them, the way they fit in their clothes. All of this has been manipulated, commercialized, and marketed and packaged. And I'm hoping that we can unball the layers of shit and expose what really matters. And that is for you to become the best version of yourself, no matter what. And to have a journey. It doesn't end in 90 days. It doesn't end in 6 months. It's for the rest of your life. If
Absolutely.
you want to have the outcome. So,
and I love hearing the passion that you have for that because it has been my experience, and I'm sure for men as well, but particularly for so many women, we have so much pressure on ourselves and judging ourselves in comparison to everybody else. I can't speak for the male experience. It might be very similar, but one of the hardest things for me was to really understand that and be okay and accept the journey. I remember when I started and, working on my own mental life. Yep. I remember the first day I went to my gym with my little Forge app program and feeling really not good about the way I looked in my fitness clothes and just saying to myself, this is day one. I don't feel great, but I'm just going to keep going. And if so long as I'm on this plan, no matter what, I know I am going to feel good. And before I know it, it'll be 3 months, it'll be 4 months, it'll be 5 months, and I had a completely different experience because of all the work that I'd done and that we'd done together to accept that this quick fix is actually a cycle of failure, and it's programmed to be a cycle of failure. They want, like, the industry, marketing, whatever it is, like, they want people to try, give everything and fail, because then you've got to come back and spend more money.
The one thing that is interesting to highlight is the pressure that people put on themselves. Like it's not as hard as people want it to be. And it's not as hard as the fitness, nutrition, and I guess you could call it the fake wellness industry want it to be, because they want you to buy things from them, obviously.
Yes, exactly. It's marketing demons. Look, and all of this to say what we're talking about all comes from a place of deep love for humanity, really, because we want people to feel healing around a subject that should, like you said, not be so difficult and take up so much mental space. I spent years of my life fixated, on my weight. And every party I went to, if there was like a plate of chocolate, all I could do was think about that plate of chocolate. Don't take it. Don't take a bite. Take a bite. I've had a bite. Shit, I've had 2 bites now. Oh fuck. Like, and like I wouldn't be present because all I could do was focus on the food that was sitting on the table. It's like I never thought I'd be free of it. I never thought I would be free of it. It was so all-consuming. My husband once found a whole bag of chocolate stuffed in our couch cushion because I was too embarrassed to put it in the cupboard. He didn't give a fuck if I had chocolate. He gave no shits. But I felt personal shame, so I used to hide it in the house.
If you look at historically over the last 100 years, there's almost always been some cognitive dissonance that is universally spread socially. It's now happening at a prodigious rate. I have major problems with social media and its impact on the youth and the way that they perceive themselves. And then the sense of invulnerability that people have, the keyboard warriors, all of that stuff I find to be absolutely nonsensical, but it's damaging to our society. But I want to get back to something that's very important. Male, female, or whatever you choose to call yourself, you're going to die. And between now and then, you get to choose. You get to choose, how well do you want to live? Do you want to be mobile? Do you want to have flexibility? Do you want to have strength? Do you have endurance? Do you want a physique that you're proud of that supports the endeavors of your life? It's important for people to always remember that they can be the best version of themselves and there's nothing holding them back but themselves, at least in Western civilization. I want to make that distinction because, yes, there are social economic problems. I want to go back to your original question, which was like, how did I even get started in this? Like, what even was this? We didn't tangent. I felt that was a really good caveat that you brought up. So I'm going to bring it back around because the themes that we just discussed for the last 2 or 3 minutes are going to be almost ever present in all of our conversations because they're reality of our lives now.
That's right.
Technology, social media. But let me explain something that I think would be a nice segue into explaining how I got to where I am now and why I have the attitude, the disposition that I have related to your earlier question. How did I even get into this? And you said Gordon Ramsay-esque, which is always funny to me because people always tell me that. And ironically, I'm quite a fan of Gordon Ramsay. I don't find him to be as off-putting as everybody else does. And maybe that's because, birds of a feather.
I think maybe that's also why I'm friends with you. If I did find him off-putting, I wouldn't. He's passionate and he's blunt, and a lot of people can't handle blunt honesty. And yeah, look, sometimes there is things with tact that it can be received easier. But if you're secure in yourself, then you can handle that shit and you can take it and go, yeah, fair point, man.
Here's what I do when I'm on a coaching call. That is when I'm there to meet the client where they're at, right?
Yeah.
Now, on a podcast, some of my clients are going to be like, I was not expecting that because they've never experienced this unfettered version of myself. This is an opportunity for me to be able to be very, very concise and speak broadly. I don't have to edit myself for that particular client's needs, which is the responsibility that I have on a one-on-one session. But
it's a beautiful gift and talent that you have to be able to do that because that's how you can assist people. Because if you don't meet people where they're at, they can't hear it. They can't hear what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. I want to explain how I got into practical application of coaching because I started as a practical application curriculum consultant for Bryan University's degree program. So that was for advanced fitness nutrition sciences. I was doing that while I was building my personal training and consulting business. Now, my personal training business was a studio and my consulting business ended up actually turning into Forge over time. It was called Club Management Solutions. And I actually worked with club owners where I would come in and I would help them build a whole operational infrastructure so they'd actually be successful, right? Because franchises, they're just concerned about other things, but I would help them actually develop quality programming. Anyway, but the combination of my involvement with academia and connecting with people that were struggling so hard. And that's the thing. Everybody's struggling. Even these big old giant bodybuilders, they still have their struggles. These people are having problems achieving and maintaining their well-being. I realized something that sustainability was going to become one of the hallmarks of my practice. Once I was done with the curriculum development of Bryan University, they offered me a full-time teaching position, instructing the very curriculum that I helped to develop. I did that for many years, and that was lovely, which is actually where I met Coach Millie, and her and I have been friends now for 17 years, I think. I started 2007 at Bryan University. Anyway, in 2017, I left the corporate world, and I wanted to develop my own high touch and truly personal fitness, nutrition, and habit transformation company. And I knew I wanted to do it online. I have other reasons for that, and today I won't go into how I got into the online space, what the motivation was there, but I will tell you 2 things. It was, what do I love the most about the industry? One was practical hands-on physiology and personal training, biomechanic assessment, and then also education. I love those things very much. But anyway, what ended up happening was Forge was born. We officially launched January 1st of 2017. But my experience with the in-person and the online coaching exposed that there was way more to wellness management than just a diet and workout. I found that in many ways, the media and companies that are producing products and services, they super oversimplified what it takes to remain fit in this modern world because they don't understand the difference between how we live 100 years ago to today. But I think they also don't fucking care. And they convolute reasonable fitness and nutrition outcome expectations for profit. This oversimplification and that confusion, they're intended to sell you crap. Fad diets, workout templates, gimmicks. And I wanted to get away from all of that. We could call that, well, you said it earlier, the marketing hype, and the fitness commodity. It's commodity.
Yeah.
And I
And
wanted
that's
to cheap commodity too. Your fitness, your nutrition, your habits, your well-being ain't cheap. All right. And so I wanted to find real solutions. So during those few years, I really started to notice that I could write you the best workout plan on the planet. And I could give you a really dialed in nutrition plan. But if you had a shitty attitude about it and you weren't willing to journey towards behavior change or habit transformation, it wasn't going to work.
Yeah. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make a drink.
So I realized, okay, well, I need to start with something else. And so what is that? Well, it's your actions. It's your daily habits. It's your routine. And so I started to outline a book on this topic. I started the outline in 2010. I finally published in 2022, the 90-day habit transformation. It's the essential guide to sustainable fitness, nutrition, and personal well-being.
Yes,
Anyway.
and I personally thoroughly enjoy the audiobook because you know how I love hering you rant.
Right.
And you get so passionate reading the words. Like, if anyone ever wants to know how you really feel.
The recording of that, first of all, I did not know it was going to be that expensive. And I had no idea how consuming it was going to be. The book it's just about 380 pages of nonfiction. That's almost at the upper level of people's tolerance. But,
yeah, that's actually a good motto for your personality.
I'm at the upper level of people's tolerance.
Yeah.
Stop. Fantastic.
Just on the back of all of that, the biggest challenge, therefore, that you and your coaches at Forge really have is to combat this idea that's perpetrated in all of media, social media included, that fitness is punchy, is quick, is like 30 days, get the body of your dreams. Because like you said, if your client doesn't have the mentality, what are you going to do? Because they're so conditioned to think of it the other way. If I suffer, if I kill myself for 4 weeks, I'm going to be able to wear a bikini and look like a fitness model. That's just not reality. And when you said, a while ago that we, had difficult conversations. The only difficult conversation I don't remember disliking you, but I do remember not liking hearing realistic goals. I've said that before this time. That's really challenging because it completely goes against what you're being fed from all of your influences that you're looking at in terms of your goals. And because of my personality and what I consider, I have a curious mind. I love self-development in all its forms. If you look at my bookcase, it's kind of cringe. Be your better self, change your thoughts, change your life. All of this. But that allowed me to go on the journey with you and address those things and sit in that uncomfortable place. But it still took years. It still took years of being able to be okay to be uncomfortable. And even now, I'm postpartum. I've had a baby 6 months ago. So, my body changed and now it's changing back. If I didn't have all of these tools, like this could be incredibly triggering time. And within that, I still hit you up with messages like, how many more weeks? But now I can manage it and I can go, okay, this is where we're at. I've done it before. We'll do it again. Like, bodies are incredible. But, it is a very big challenge for you as a trainer and for your trainers. Like, how do you start? How do you begin to unpack that in a person?
Well, that's challenging. But I first want to give you an affirmation. You just said something that's very important to remember, that your mindset has shifted. And
completely.
At the end of the day, this is where the game is. It's not here.
1,000 for everything, not just for fitness, but for literally everything. We only get to live in our own head, so let's make it a nice place to be.
Yeah.
We spend our whole life up in here. This is so important, these dialogues, because like I've said, so much real estate gets taken up, hating ourselves, being negative, focusing on the wrong thing, setting ourselves up for failure, going, I'm going to do a 30-day wall Pilates challenge. And then in 30 days, go, why do I not look like the girl who sold me this program? And then start beating yourself up. Oh, I probably didn't do the workout properly, or I ate that pizza, and it just becomes this vicious cycle of self-defamation.
Yes. One of the biggest challenges is that we live in a society that craves desperately instant gratification because that's all we've had. Think about it in this regard. I don't want to overly date myself. I'm a man who's turning 46 years old. I feel like I don't look it. I certainly don't feel it.
No.
And when I was a young man, say teenager, and I wanted to learn something, I had to get my bitch ass to the library. You know how hard that was when you're 15 years old and how do you get there? First of all,
encyclopedias.
Yeah. Well, I think we had a family meeting about investing $1,500 in encyclopedias because we were
encyclopedias were $1,500.
in the
That's a lot
80s,
today,
90s.
let alone.
Oh yeah, late
Wow.
80s, early 90s. Yeah. And in fact, they were sold door to door. Oh yeah.
Wow.
It's a very different world that we live in now. In order for me to get even a snippet of information required a significant amount of effort.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can learn almost anything I want at the push of a button. I can even it's even worse. I could go to an AI system and I can get information.
It's information overload.
Absolutely.
Like, how do you know what's correct information and what's not? Actually, is a whole episode on its own. It's very important.
I have a 5-step process for figuring that out. So I'll come back to that. Maybe it would be fun if we were to just talk about something like some ridiculous myths.
Absolutely. What stands out for you as like the worst or most stupid one that you've heard? Is there one that's particularly more stupid or?
Let me tell you about one that doesn't sound like it's stupid. And it's highly prevalent. It sounds so good. Gosh, for a woman, I could just see how they'd be just so into this idea. The word toned.
Oh.
But let me explain
why. Right.
Yeah. So I think it's misunderstood and it's an overused term in fitness. But I want to explain not only why it's scientifically inaccurate, but I talk about it a little bit more in a way that people would understand and appreciate because they hear it all the time. And I guess one of the big myths is like, I just want to be toned, but I don't want to get bulky. Anyway, but that's a myth because here's the truth. You cannot physiologically tone a muscle. You can only build muscle and then lose fat around it. That's it. Toning is just a marketing term that was coined in the late 1990s.
Right.
But this was gyms were trying to attract the female population into gyms. I'll just say that there were some very popular San Francisco Bay Area gyms that were very, very big, that were open 24 hours, that had some aggressive marketing. And in addition to equipment manufacturers and whatnot, they started using terms that sounded appealing to the more fair of the sexes. So it sounds better than gain muscle and reduce your fat. Because women think, I want to tone and I want to lose weight, right? There's a terminology problem here.
Yeah, until you said that, I never even realized that I have totally misused that term without even really understanding what I'm talking about. I think reflecting on it now, probably felt like if I say I want to get toned, that is more about like the skin tightening. I probably thought that. Yeah, I think I did, like getting toned, not so much about building muscle. Is that not accurate?
No, none of what you said is accurate.
Right, yeah, that checks.
But in your mind, for what you're envisioning based on the term that's used, that makes sense. Let me clarify this. Your body's a system of pulleys and levers. The pulleys are the muscle and the lever is the bone. So muscles don't get longer or leaner. That's all bullshit. If you want that tight, defined, sculpted look that people called tone, you need enough muscle mass. See, that's where women hear that. Don't want that.
Yes, because they're worried if they lift weights, they're going to get bulky.
Yeah. So you need enough muscle mass and low enough body fat for the muscle to show. So that would be a combination of hypertrophy and a low body fat percentage.
So body composition change.
Right, it's composition change. So when you say to a physiologist, I don't want to get bulky, I just want to tone, it's what I hear is like, I want to get wet, but I don't want water on me. And it's like, okay, let me process that for a second. In the field of physiology, it's tonality, and it got bastardized.
Right.
Yeah, so explain it. Tonality, particularly in relation to muscle tone, refers to the level of resistance a muscle will show to passive stretching while in a rested state. It represents the typical tension or a mild contraction or slight contraction that a muscle sustains when it plays a role in posture coordination and regulation of movement. This is what's important. In general, irregularities in muscle tone, which would be hypertonia, which means it's excessively toned, or hypotonia, which means an insufficient tone, they are usually the presentation of a neurological condition. But just to reiterate, it makes sense to me why and how the term was utilized to sound soft in marketing. It's enticing. So I get that. But just remember that you cannot tone. You can only improve the potential of
It's
lean
actually
muscle.
mind blowing how bastardized that term is. And even I consider myself someone quite educated in, fitness. And I was not aware of that. I've got a Cert 4 in fitness. Like I could legally be like a low grade personal trainer. I have, 1,000 years ago when I got my Cert, Cert 4. Like, and that never came up as something that you'd think studying fitness they would talk about.
You had asked another question too. What's the most like kind of ridiculous, or the one that I just kind of think is the most silly? Let me tell you that one, and then we can move on. But the one that doesn't really make sense to me, that is so often used, is when people say that you can sweat out fat, or sweat is commensurate to the amount of calories that you've burned.
Yeah, right.
I find it's a little generational, so the older the gentleman, guys like, oh dude, I just got a really good sweat on. And I'm like, bitch, that doesn't mean anything. The puddle around your cardio piece, or the amount of droplets that you forgot to clean up, has nothing to do with fat burning. Sweat is just your body's cooling system. It's water and electrolytes. It's not liquefied lard, guys. You're going to lose weight after a sweaty workout, but that's just water. Fat loss happens when you burn more calories than you consume over time, in conjunction with your hormonal response to food type. Meaning, let's just say your metabolic output is, say, 2,000 calories, and you're like, oh, I heard on social media that if I have a 500 calorie deficit, 500 times 7 is 3,500 calories. So that's 1 pound of fat. All the crap, right?
Hashtag fitness math.
Okay, so if I eat just cake, but I have a 500 calorie deficit, then that means that I'm going to lose a pound a week. No, that's not true, because you're not taking into account what's going on inside of your body and what your metabolic response to the food is going to be.
Best ways to explain that to someone who doesn't have any of this technical understanding that I found is that food is employed or unemployed. So cake is unemployed, avocado is employed. You eat both of them. They sit on the couch in your stomach. Cake just sits there, veggies out all day, and becomes absorbed by the body. Avocado gets up, puts a suit, goes to work, balances your hormones, like resets things. So even though it's the same amount of calories, what it's doing inside the body is completely different.
That is correct. And this is, by the way, how carbohydrates got the nasty reputation that they don't deserve, is because the kind of carbohydrates that most people crave and or eat, or that are available, didn't used to be. It's all manufactured. It's all fake. And our bodies are not very good at dealing with simple chain carbohydrates because of the glycemic factor. Now, it's not the index. I want to make that very clear. The glycemic index is very helpful, especially if you're struggling with diabetes, but it's the glycemic load. Here's the simple thing. Folks, you want to lose weight, or fat, I should say, to be more precise. Lift weights, eat well, sleep, repeat. Sweat is not a receipt. All sweat does is show that either you're genetically predispositioned for higher levels of perspiration, or it's really fucking hot outside.
Yeah.
It's temperature. So anyway, so moving on from that.
It's just so funny. No, when you say eat, repeat, wait, like I love that, because that's my favorite kind of training now. But it's so funny that you like all of this like crap has been layered on top of the most basic principles, and when you just say them, they can sound really like unsexy or unappealing, because we want flash and jazz and Ozempic and all of these things. It's so simple. It's at its core. Like it works, people. Like it does, it works. It's just amazing that we forget how The simple approach is the actual method that yields results. It doesn't have to be fancy.
For the general population, it's simple. It's just not easy. And I think that's what turns people off. Remember, we just talked about instant gratification society. But since we just talked about sweat and fat and all that stuff, how about this? Let me segue into another myth. This is becoming less popular, but I still hear it, and I don't know why. Is that muscle and fat are the same tissue? I don't want this muscle to turn to fat, or vice versa.
Oh, yeah, I've heard people say that. I don't want my muscle to turn to fat.
Well, fat and muscle are two entirely different tissues.
But your muscle can decrease, right?
Of course, you can lose muscle.
Yeah.
Yes, and you can add adipose and you can decrease adipose. You can hypertrophy and you can atrophy. Since we're on the topic, I guess, of composition change, when you reduce body fat and you increase muscle mass, your body shape will change, right? Because that's composition.
Yes.
Now, people confuse that fat turning into muscle, which is the weirdest thing. Just look at the anatomy of a muscle and then look at the anatomy of a fat cell, and you'll be like, okay, now I get it. They're not even the same. There's no contractile elements whatsoever inside of a fat cell. So that's always been a weird one. But I think that, your grandma said it and then your mom said it. Now,
and it just goes down. I think it's interesting how you said about like weight loss. It just made me think. I literally yesterday just had a conversation with a friend of mine. She is super fit. She probably wouldn't call herself that, but she is. She rows and she competes and does quite well. And she has just started weights training to support her rowing, and she's got a trainer, and they're doing heavy lifting, giving her a lot of power in her legs. And the training sounds fabulous. Like what she's telling me all sounds great. And I was talking about my postnatal journey and how, I'm getting back into my clothes again slowly. And she was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing because every time I step on the scales, I'm heavier. And I was like, but aren't you doing really heavy weights training? And she's like, yeah, but my clothes all still fit. Like, I was like, what the fuck do you care? She's like, yeah, I'm actually, they're a little bit loose. I'm like, what do you care what the scale says? Who cares that the scales are going up? That's wonderful, dude. Like, that means it's working. I literally, like, she's like, yeah, I guess you're right. But we got there and she's understanding, but her initial response was so programmed to think, shit, the scales are going up. And I had this conversation with you when I was weights training. Michael, why am I 10 pounds heavier?
This conversation. Like you brought this shit up like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 months ago. It's like I said, it's pervasive. It's so ingrained in how we think. What she is doing is correct. Her working with a trainer and working on force production absolutely is going to help her in her sport. But cardio is the typical go-to. Now, and cardio will help you lose weight. But here's the thing. So since we're on that, I'm going to neatly move us along on another myth that cardio is the best way to lose fat or weight, right? Okay, whatever. Cardio does burn calories. Sure, to a degree while you're doing it. But if you want to lose fat and you want to look good, well, naked, for example, strength training is kind of a non-negotiable because it is the backbone of composition. Your shape is your muscle, not your bones. Nonsense aside, if you want to have a nice shape, it's going to be muscle. But cardio helps with your heart health.
Yeah.
But it's not the star of the show. It's just the warm-up act.
And you know how I know that? Because every time you've given me cardio, I never do it and I still look great.
You and I are going to have a separate conversation about this. Yeah, that is. I will tell you that there's two things that are very difficult for me when it comes to the physical aspect of fitness. It's very difficult for me to get people to do their cardio and their core.
Yeah, I love core, but cardio sucks.
And in core, that would include mobility training. It's very difficult for me to get most people to do those things. Since we're on the topic of strength training versus cardio, another big myth, this happens to me with current clients who know better. They'll tell me, that new workout program that I'm working on this week, I'm not sore from that. And don't I have to be sore for it to be working?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is interesting.
It's more new. It's been around now. I would say that I've been hearing that escalate more with avid exercisers over the last, 10 years maybe. But I want to explain something real fast. that DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness, just means that you did something that your body isn't used to. It is only a signal of stress to invoke the general adaptation syndrome, but it's
Right.
not a marker of progress. Now, I mean, because look, you can have a killer workout, you can improve your strength, you can grow muscle without limping around like a baby deer for 3 days.
So I have a bit of DOMS from Monday because my baby was sick and I had a week off training, and then you go
Yeah.
back and you're sore. But it's mild. Like it's not to the point where I'm messaging you on the app, calling you names, which I have done many times and will do again in the future.
Sure, and that will happen.
But I too wonder, have thought, do I need to be after my weights workout, not necessarily to the point of DOMS, but just feeling like, oh, I worked that. Like, do you want to feel like that little like tension? Or does it not need to be present at all?
There's 3 categories here. Delayed onset muscle soreness can, over sustained periods, instigate something called the cumulative injury cycle, which will increase the chances of you getting hurt. And it can also delay results because you're not getting enough recovery. So that would be DOMS. It is
Right.
reasonable to expect DOMS when you're doing something wildly different from what your body is used to, or you have a competent trainer who's periodizing, or you're competent enough to periodize your own protocols so that you are giving your body a new stress signal that it is not used to and it has to
Yeah, I was
contend
going to
with it.
say, most of the time I only get that the first week
First
of a new
to second
program
week.
with you.
That's it.
And then it will go, and then I'll have like sometimes mild soreness, but not like the trying to sit on the toilet seat, like, oh.
And you don't want that long term. Typically, for the most people, is somewhere the adaptation window is between 4 and 8 weeks, depending on what you're trying to work on. The more fit you are, the closer to your genetic potential you are, the wider that window goes. It ain't 8 weeks. It's sometimes 18 weeks. Imagine this. You're running a 50-minute 5K. Getting that 50-minute 5K down to 45 minutes is really easy to do. But if you're Usain Bolt and you're trying to shave off a fraction of a millisecond, good luck. You may never get there because you're close to your absolute peak potential. So
Right.
then moving on into that post-exercise soreness, or PES. And that's where you were just indicating a little bit of a tenderness in 24 to 48 hours after the activity, but then it's gone, and it wouldn't even exclude you from activating that muscle again in any significant way.
No.
However, you could easily be in a situation where you lifted very heavy, you even hit a PR, and you're working on a certain algorithm. Say, for example, you're working on, I don't know, you just use any muscle action. Let's do something simple, a chest press, and you're trying to get to the coveted 225-pound mark. And you have
Is that a coveted mark? I didn't know.
Well, it is. It's, according to social media, so that must be true.
Oh, it must be true.
If you're working towards that, but you have been working towards it for a period of time, and then you load up a little bit more and you push yourself, it is possible for you to feel almost no indication that you even lifted the next day. That doesn't mean that your body didn't respond to it. Now, here's the thing. There are indicators. There are ways that you can determine whether or not your intensity and your time under tension is high enough to elicit the adaptation that you're looking for. But that's a whole nother fucking thing. So in the interest of time, why don't I move it back? We were talking about carbs. Should we do the carbs now?
Yeah, carb myth. I mean, that's a huge myth,
Carb
is that you need to, massive. Another one that I have been particularly victim to.
Yeah. In general, excessive energy intake compared to your output is what makes you gain body fat, not carbohydrates. Now, there are caveats to this, and this is where people get dodgy, and this is also where I would like to point out that it's very easy to monetize, because you can monetize on fear and products. Very easy to do. Now, despite what you hear on social media or what even doctors say, I'm not claiming by any means that I'm a physician. We do not cure, treat, or prevent disease at Forge by any means. But I'll explain something really fast without going into the deep science. We'll do that in another episode. But carbohydrates are, without question, your body's preferred energy source, not ketones. It's carbohydrates, it's glucose, especially for intense workouts. And it is required for brain function and recovery. Carbohydrates are also protein sparing. It's like blaming a knife for the cake. It's not the tool, it's how you use it. Do you see what I mean?
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So there are 2 factors that make people gain weight. eating more calories than they burn, as I just mentioned, regardless of whether it's from carbs, fat, or protein, or alcohol. Carbs 4, fat 9, protein 4, alcohol 7 per gram.
Mhm.
Right? So even a kale smoothie. I mean,
hate
no
kale.
offense to people who like kale, but I
No, I
don't know
can't
what
deal with kale because people think you have to suffer for fitness. They have to suffer through kale.
we have to do a whole episode on that. But I'm joking, and I know that I'm probably going to get some lady who's going to make a nasty comment about how I said something about kale. Anyway, you can gain weight on kale. If you're chugging it like a frat boy at a keg stand, you're going to get fat eating vegetables. Good luck, though. You know how much vegetables you have to eat to hit even your calorie need? Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. The second is, I've always say this, it is the quality of your food source and its sugar content. It is, how does your body respond to the total value of glucose? How much insulin is your body having to produce? I said this earlier. You can eat junk food in a deficit and still gain body fat. Not necessarily at first, but you're going to go homeostatic. You're going to change your body's perception of nutrition intake. So now
Which
you
can
can
also
get away with it.
which can also bleed into another myth to include in this is that and another one that I've been victim to is that the less you eat, the more you'll lose.
That's going to be one more. Okay, I'll add that one to my list.
There's so many now.
I know.
When you start thinking about it.
I know. I'm only
And
do a couple more and then we'll move on.
They all link together though, because it's
That's
like,
why
okay,
that's why it's so easy.
Yeah, it's like, okay, don't eat carbs, and then okay, so make sure I eat as less as possible. So it's just one after the other after the other. They're all married together in a soup of bullshit.
And unfortunately, people just really get off on that. But here's the thing. You can get away with eating poorly for a few weeks, maybe even a month or two. But you're going to have to pay the bill. And your body's going to revolt against the poisoning that you've done to it. And that's exactly what it is. You're poisoning your body. So let's get this straight. Whole grains, fruit, rice, oats, potatoes, not rolled, steel cut oats. Tubers, like sweet potatoes. The only thing I would say about sweet potatoes, if you have a digestive issue, they have resistant starch. So if you're coming off a fast or something like that, use a regular potato. They have a much higher bioavailability. But I will say that sweet potatoes are a go-to. Absolutely phenomenal. I don't typically like using the term superfood, but I could probably neatly put sweet potato in there. Absolutely fucking love it.
I have a question about what you said about the oats. Like, are we really going to, does it really make a huge difference to your body composition to have steel cut versus rolled, or whatever?
Well, it depends. Do you want the nutritional value of the foods that you're consuming, or are you just eating them because you like the way it tastes?
Does it really take the nutritional down that much just on how the oat is cut? Wow.
Yeah, well, what's the anatomy of an oat? You have a wheat germ and you have an endosperm. You crush the shit out of it. It separates the wheat germ from the endosperm, and now you've destroyed its actual nutritional bioavailability. This is proven, Khaleesi. This is known.
Right.
Is that how it goes in Game of Thrones? This is known, Khaleesi?
Yeah.
This is.
And I am the mother of dragons because my baby was born in Year of the Dragon.
That's right.
So I am motherfucking Khaleesi, bitch. Okay.
The story on rolled oats is actually a perfect example of the ultra processing fads of the United States. We'll get into food history and
and look, the Industrial Revolution, even I know how much that fucked. It is just humans couldn't keep up in their personal evolution of processing foods with how quickly the processing of food evolved. The Industrial Revolution just blew the roof off of food processing.
Well, the Industrial Revolution was the beginning of it.
Yes, exactly.
World War I, I think, was the platform that really accelerated it. Then don't forget, between World War I and World War II, we had the Great Depression, and then we had the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. So America went through a significant amount of famine. America really struggled. In fact, other countries struggled even more than we did. We had a relatively reasonable recovery, all things considered. But the manufacturing, processing, and distribution of food fundamentally changed after World War II. That is definitely important. But yes, rolled oats have a lower nutritional density than a steel cut oat. And they don't take any fucking longer to make. It's 7 minutes. It's not that hard.
But I remember when we were having a conversation, because I couldn't get behind the oats in America when I was living there, and we were talking about porridge, because I'm like, I miss porridge. Remember this? And I had to special order it because you were like, eat oats, and I was like, I hate oats here.
Yeah. Anyway, so then now you have to take into consideration all the ultra processed junk and the massive portions.
Yes.
And the things that are in our food that you can't even pronounce. Well, what effect are they having on your body? So the bottom line is this: whole food, complex carbohydrates, like I had just said, whole grains, fruits, rice, oats, potatoes, vegetables. These are not poor choices. for optimum cognitive function, this isn't anything to do with how your body performs, how your brain performs, that the average person needs about 130 to 140 grams of carbohydrates per day. That's
Yeah.
not an unreasonable number.
No, but it is interesting because of that myth we talked about how if you eat less, you're going to lose more weight, which is something that you've helped me work on quite a bit. And when you give me that number, the first time I saw that number of carbs I was meant to eat, I was like, like, squeeze me. I will turn into a ball of fat overnight if I eat that many carbs, because I was so like at one point, actually before I was training with you and I was in a not good space, I was like eating 800 calories a day, mostly made up by Quest bars, and like going to the gym as much as I could. I ended up getting chronic fatigue at that point. This was like when I was in Australia before I moved to America, and I was not realizing how much I was running my body into the ground because I wasn't educated at that point. And I just thought, okay, the less I eat and the more I work out, the better I'll be. And it's a protein bar, so that's got to be good.
Well, that moves us neatly along. Let's just cap the myth with that, and then because we can do more myths later. But let's talk.
They're going to be never ending.
They don't. I'm overwhelmed with content, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, yeah, we are cooked, man. But anyway, let's talk about you have to eat less.
Yes.
To keep losing weight. There's an interesting idea that less is more when it comes to food. And that is the fast track to absolutely wrecking your metabolism. You fry your hormones, you're tired, you're moody, and you get stuck in a plateau.
Yeah.
All while you're miserable.
Mm-hmm.
It's miserable
because
you just said it earlier. It's like, why do people insist on making this hurt?
Yes. That talks about what we spoke about earlier, not on this session, but the deprivation mindset. And that's how your brain gets full when you're at a party, a social event, and you're seeing food that is a no-go food for you. It becomes all consuming because you are so deprived and in this state of suffering because there's something wrong with you. You need to lose weight, but you're finding it difficult, which you shouldn't because you're a fat fuck and all of the things you say to yourself. It all links back together. And you don't realize that you're perpetuating this cycle of difficulty because you are putting your body in a starvation mode state, which also messes you psychologically, and round you go.
I think that you define toxicity right there, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Right. Because what ends up happening is that you have now a negative relationship with food.
Yep.
And then the internal conversations that you're having are not affirming by any stretch. Would you say fat fuck?
Yeah.
and this is not necessarily helpful whatsoever because as we had discussed earlier, that fitness and nutrition come down to mindset. In fact,
Yes.
I write about this extensively. I call it the 30 times 3 plus 10 rule. I'll just make a brief capstone of what this concept is. 3 times 3 plus 10. So that equals 100. And I've always contended that 10% of your potential is decided for you. You got no fucking say. You are the height that you are. You don't get to choose your eye color. You don't get to choose your hair color. Now, there are some things that we can do. Cosmetic surgeries, contacts, hair dyes, all this stuff.
Yeah, but your genetics are your genetics.
But your genetics are your genetics. You know, people like to get into somatotypes, and I don't particularly subscribe to excessive somatotype classification.
What's a somatotype?
The somatotype would be endomorphic, mesomorphic, or ectomorphic, right?
Yeah, okay, got me.
Right. Well, the reason that I don't...
Basically, for people who don't know, that is just your body type.
I just want people to understand that it was a study that was being done about 60 years ago and was trying to determine whether or not somebody's body type would actually influence their psychological predisposition. Mm-hmm. And the answer to that was no, it doesn't. But I did want to just kind of maybe move us out of that because we can go into the body types and all that stuff. And I know that marketing companies, especially supplement companies, really fucking love to use that stuff. And it's wrong. It's all wrong. You do have a genetic predisposition, right? So that's 10%. You don't get to control that. When you're making an assessment of yourself, just put your fitness, your activity into 30%, put your dietary intake into 30%, and then put your mindset, your attitude, your habits into 30% and slide the scales. Can't do shit with 10, but you still have 90% that you can work with. And what I encourage people to do is determine how much of your problem is fitness related, how much of your problem is nutrition related, and then how much of your problem is your mindset or your attitude about those two things. And what I
It's
would
hard though, because how many people are self-aware enough to say it's their mindset?
Well, that's the thing is that most people, they're going to blame an external source. That's the
Correct.
natural, that's the natural path of the human, right? It's like water down a hill. It's going to take the path of least resistance. And we live in a society where personal responsibility is absolutely out. It is always
Yeah.
someone else's fault. If it's not your parents, if it's not society, it's the government. It's always somebody's fault. And you can't take any fucking responsibility for yourself, which is precisely why 7 out of 10 Americans are considered overfat. Think about that, Sarah. You put 10 people in a room, 7 of them are fat.
That's crazy.
Now, think about this. I'm going to round up. The numbers are going to come out probably by the end of this year, and I think it's going to be worse, but it's somewhere in the 40 percentile. But I'm going to round up to 50%. 50% of Americans are clinically obese.
Wow.
Guess what? The number one killer,
The
according to the
irony.
CDC of the United States, what's the
Get out.
number one killer of Americans?
Obesity.
Obesity-related disease.
My goodness.
This is what we call oscillation. This is going from one extreme to another.
Wow.
Here's the way I've always said this. Americans are like, this is a really crass example, but please just give me some grace on this one. But I think it'll make a point. Let's pretend you're a crack whore and you're in the gas station trying to find your next fix.
Wait. I gotta get in the mindset of crack whore. Hang on. All right.
Living in character.
Yeah, I gotta channel my inner crack whore.
Okay.
She's
let's
in there.
Pretend
She's coming out.
for just a moment, you're a crack whore and you're walking through a gas station looking for your next fix, and you see, oh, I don't know, $5 sitting on the ground, and you're just like, oh, maybe I'll buy a lottery ticket. And so you go to the front desk and you buy a lottery ticket, but let's just pretend that you just won an exorbitant amount of money all of a sudden, like that. You suddenly have $1 million or more. Do you think that crack whore is going to stop doing crack now that she has $1 million? Or do you think she's just going to get more and better crack?
Yeah, we're going to be dead in like the next week.
Which, by the way, there's a law firm that did a study on lottery winners, and then they found that a significant amount of winners did not thrive more than 5 years after. Here's the thing. We are not capable of managing this. Humans won the lottery, especially in the Western world. We won the lottery. And again, we're going back to what I just was talking about, World War II, the industrial machine, and then the baby boom, and then the mass farming and all the lobbying and all the other stuff that had happened. Some of it was necessary. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the situation we are today. But don't forget that the mega grocery stores are kind of new. They're new.
So you're basically saying that we're all crack whores and we can't handle the abundance of crack that we're now suddenly being offered.
At least we know this. We know for about 14,000 years, at least from consistent history, that we've been an aggregate society, that we've been growing shit. All right. So that's thousands of years. And that's all we did. From the moment you got up to the moment you went to bed, your entire existence was food.
It was making sure your existence continued.
Right. And then you had to provide. There's more
and
to it.
Wealth was...
How many goats?
I should rephrase. Being slightly plump or fat was desirable because it meant wealth.
In some cultures, that is correct. In fact, in some cultures, the darker your skin, it was considered to be less desirable because it meant that you were outside too much. All kinds of crazy.
That's right. It's right. But a lot of the paintings, and I can't think of what era it is.
Victorian era.
Yeah, like women depicted as very pale and slightly plump because of that reason. It meant wealth because of starvation, because of the difficulty to get food, all of those things. And now the pendulum, as you said, has swung completely in the opposite direction. And if you are fit, if you have glowing tan skin, the skinnier you are, means the more wealthy and better off and desirable you are. It's completely done a 180.
Everything's changed significantly. But think about that, just let that sink in. As crude as the analogy is, imagine though that we're desperate daily, not weekly, daily, for sustenance, for food, scratching out a living. And that was the primary focus. But we have advanced as a civilization. But in some areas, there are regressions, and they're regressions that make sense. Crack whores. Humans are crack whores for food. You can't go and get petrol. You can't even go and buy clothes at a department store without a giant chocolate display. You can't go anywhere without food being immediately accessible to you. And guess what? You're a crack whore.
Yeah.
So it's
Now
very
it's
difficult.
combined with two addictions, the food and also the model, like the aspirational body selling the food, which does not compute. Like a teenager, and you go through your awkward chubby face. And I remember, I was on a farm, I was very isolated, the internet was a new thing, thinking, why, when I'm seeing people eat McDonald's and the ads for McDonald's, they all look so skinny and they're all in bikinis and they all look wonderful, and I'm eating McDonald's and I, I don't look like that. Like there's something wrong with me. Like my body doesn't work right. I had no concept that the advertisement I was seeing that was selling me this food, Coca-Cola, like whatever these products are, was linked to obesity or putting extra fat in your body or poor health, any of those things. It, no idea. The average person, unless they go on a an education dive, isn't going to know that.
Yeah.
So it creates a really interesting thing. That's where your head fucked upness comes. That's not a correct statement, right? But that's where it starts. That's where it starts. All this programming, the drive. Like I want to be able to eat these foods, but I also want to look like this. So how do I do both of those things? And that's where the quick fix like drive comes from.
Yeah, so I think this is definitely one of the cogs in that wheel that drive it. But kind of bringing this back into the less is more. We live in such an insane amount of privilege as an entire society that we can self-induce starvation. It's never happened in history. Now, every religion and nearly
Damn, I
all
never
cultures,
thought about it like that. Like the privilege of anorexia. I never thought of it
that's
like that.
precisely what it
Wow.
is.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that is a crazy perception.
Think about this. Every culture and almost all religions have some form of fasting, but there's a reason behind it.
Yeah.
Aside from that, bring it to modern day. We live in such a privileged and abundant society that we can choose to restrict food, knowing full well that at any moment that our tummy rumbles just a little bit, we can get anything we want. It is a disorder, and that's why it's called an eating disorder. I encourage people to eat to their needs, whatever that is. Less is not better. We all know more isn't better. Everybody knows that. Well, that's not necessarily true either, right? Because if we want to take a substrate of a percentage of a population who are trying to gain, like sumo wrestlers, power lifters, bodybuilders in off season, athletes of certain sports, obviously they're going to need a surplus of energy because their output is so high and they want to make sure that they have just enough and they're willing to take on a little
That's still
extra.
eating for their needs. That's still eating for
But
their
that's
needs.
eating for their, see, exactly. You just made, yeah, perfect point. It's eating for their needs. Now, for a general pop, if you're just general population, if you want to feel and look and perform your best, then you still have to eat your need. That doesn't mean that you undereat and it doesn't mean that you overeat, because undereating causes retention. I'm not going to get into set point theory or anything like that today because that's a little too complicated. I think it's people's minds will start to numb on it. But here's the thing. Sustainable fat loss means eating enough to fuel your training, build your muscle, support your hormones, and still be in a modest deficit. And that's the sweet spot. So I joked around earlier about how everyone's like, oh, if I have a 500 calorie deficit. Well, here's the interesting news. That doesn't work for everybody.
Mm.
You have to eat for you. Not for anyone else, not for the social media influencer who's trying to sell her stupid supplements, or the social media guy on TikTok who clearly is juicing. All that superfluous stuff is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you standing nude in front of your mirror with the lights on and saying, what can I do to improve? And instead of hating what you see, loving what you see, instead of hating your body, falling in love with it, and nurturing it and growing it and feeding it, giving it what it needs to be the best that it can. And be very, very careful. And this is difficult, but very careful not to compare yourself to all the other people. And this is the problem with Instagram, is very, very visual. We all know that men are visual. However, there are some very fascinating studies. In fact, I have an article coming out on this topic, which is women are becoming more visual than ever before based on any data. And the reason is because women get the instant dopamine hit from the visualization. And you know what it is? It's other women.
Yeah,
And so
no,
your gains are
absolutely.
constantly scrolling. And think about this. Now you have to contend with the AI bots that are showing up, and
Mm.
they're artificial, but they look real. It's so difficult. Like to the point now where even I'm like, is that a real
Yeah,
girl?
no, you can't tell. And because everything's got filters and angles and lighting and everyone looks
Unbelievable.
incredible, like, no, it is really difficult. But
Wildly
what
difficult. But
you said was so powerful about being able to stand in the mirror and look at yourself without hating yourself. Do not know maybe more than one or two people in my life that I could say confidently could do that. And am I even one of those people? I don't know. I think I stand there and I can appreciate a lot. Do I love myself as much as I want to? Probably I'm still working on that.
it's reasonable to turn that into part of your journey when it comes to your composition. Let's pull wellness and being fit cellularly out of this, and let's just talk about your aesthetics. It's okay to have an extrinsic aesthetic goal, meaning that it's something in the future and something that you're
Yes.
working towards.
Yes.
I think that's a good thing. You should probably pillar that with an intrinsic goal so that you're getting small rewards while you move towards that outcome.
Absolutely.
The point being is that I don't think that it's reasonable to assume that everybody's going to love everything about themselves and be a reasonable, rational human being.
No, like I was going to say, do we really want to hang out with those people that
That's
that
right.
love
Because,
absolutely
yeah,
everything about themselves? No, no.
but
But it is about loving and accepting where you are and being okay that it's a journey. And we never get it done. We're never going to get it done. There's never going to be a point where you reach and every single box in your life is ticked off.
this is absolutely the point, is that you should continue to work towards it every single day.
Yes, there's joy in that. There is a joy in the process. I mean, and this is across a lot of mentalities and a lot of philosophies, ideologies about finding joy in the journey, not just in the destination. And fitness is no different. If we become so obsessed with, I will only be happy when XYZ conditions are met, we're never going to be happy.
I want to just reiterate something that you said that is very important because the term is meaningful. Happiness is like anger. It's just simply a temporary state of an emotional high. Joy, however, could be your absolute being. And then you can have moments of happiness and you can have moments of anger, and there's all kinds of other emotions that we can experience. But if you work to make your fundamental baseline joyful about your life, well, man, doesn't that make things much better?
I love this because Nichiren Buddhism specifically is a Buddhism that I follow. And happiness is actually a state of hell in Nichiren Buddhism, in that Western people are like, whoa, what does that mean? And it's because happiness is so conditional. You can only
Correct.
be in happiness if a certain conditions are met, and as soon as they're taken away, you plunge into misery. So what we really want to try across the board of our life is sustainability, right? Sustainability in fitness, sustainability in mindset, and that is how to achieve a lot more fulfillment in all of our areas of being.
Yes. Pursue joy, because life is going to give you ups and it's going to give you downs, and the degree to which it is capable of giving you both in severe valleys and peaks is
Hmm.
remarkable, and it's a condition that all of us have to contend with. And I would also remind everybody, I said something earlier on in our conversation, that we're all going to die.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have
That's
to
actually
find a way to balance
I
all this out.
I love that you say that. It's actually something that really endears people to me. I know that sounds weird, but one of the first things my husband said to me on a date was I was upset about something. I don't even remember what it was. And I was, telling him all my woes. And his response was, none of us make it out of here alive. Don't take it too seriously. I
Yeah.
just cracked up. None of us make it out of here alive. Not one of us. It's all.
Yeah. Yes, it
and,
is the
and
human condition.
It is. And on that, everything that we've talked about, it's really about going to the gym for your body as much as it is going to the gym for your mind. It's the
Well, I
mind
don't
is a
know.
muscle. The mind is a muscle. We have to strengthen it equally, or we're not going to be able to achieve any of this stuff that we're talking about.
I think I'd take it a step further and I say that you can't separate them.
Yeah.
Remember 30 times 3
Yeah,
plus 10?
of course. That's what I mean. Like you have to train this. It's like you can't train one without the other. You can't train abs without your back. It's all it's all together. The torso
Yeah.
is one being.
I think that's a really good way of looking at things too, is that the gym should be joy. Whether it's at home or it's at a facility that you pay for and that you have to go to, and for whatever value you get out of either one of them, that's great. But at the end of the day, this is really about becoming the best version of yourself. I know that sounds so cliche. It wasn't cliche when I originally was writing my book, but now everybody says it. But it's like, it's something that I think that we struggle with, because as we've become more affluent in general society, we seem to be becoming more unhappy. Air conditioning has only been around for 60 years. A hot shower. You could, like, the
Yeah,
average
we were
person.
talking about that.
I think I sent you Jimmy
Yeah,
Carr's video on that.
yeah, we were talking about it.
Like, why are we so fucking unhappy? It's because what we're doing is we're pursuing the peak emotion at all times, because we live in a world where we're constantly dumped on dopamine. Anyway, we're going to get
Yes.
way off track.
God, that is not off track. That is so poignant. I want to know if there's ever been a time in a chat with somebody that you've debunked something and their reaction was just like what's the funniest reaction you've ever got to like debunking a myth, or a shocking reaction? Does anything stand out?
I don't know if anyone's ever said anything funny. More often than not, if they're willing to put aside their bias and what I say resonates with them in such a way, I feel it's more appreciation. It's more
Yeah.
gratitude than I would
Yeah.
say anything funny. I mean, I have all kinds of funny things that happen, but not necessarily around when I debunk something. I will say that I probably have more stories where it's a little bit more argumentative than it is.
Really? Oh, wow. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have expected that from you. So when you debunk myths, do you think that letting go of like this attachment to these myths in people in terms of your work with clients, is that the turning point for them when things start to really move towards in the right direction towards the pursuit of their goals, do you think? Are these myths like the hindrance?
They can be. They most certainly can be. For example, there's this gal I work with that's fantastic, and she thought 800 calories a day was a good idea.
You fucking bitch. Wow, she sounds stupid.
She's so dumb.
Sounds
All joking aside, I do believe that
It's me. I know. I asked that question. I was like, I'm probably the one that reacted to all of this.
no, actually, you're not too bad. The thing is that you're like everyone
It's
else.
high praise.
You come to me with a YouTube education, an Instagram education, a TikTok education. It's even contradictory. People will give me their dogma, the doctrine of which that they've kind of pinned their hopes and dreams on, because that's what this is, right?
Yes, it
That's
is.
why
It
it's
is.
snake oil. It's because it's fake,
Snake
and
oil. Bam. That's the name of this episode.
they're
Snake oil.
these social media influencers. They prey on the vulnerability, the hopes and the dreams of people who are suffering. That's what it is. These people are
Yeah.
hurting. Like, man, everybody watching or listening to this has looked in the mirror and almost got a little choked up seeing how fat they felt, or how they couldn't button a pair of pants that they normally could fit in, or that they saw a picture of themselves and they're like a guy's like, do I have tits?
No, it's so hard. Like the worst is when, you take an hour to leave the house because you keep having to put on different outfits because nothing makes you look good. I hate that.
Yes. To answer your question, I do have to be agile in the way that I approach those things with people, because there's an emotional element to this too, right? These people are, while they're desperate, I just want to point out, not so desperate that they got that fat. An unpopular truth, by the way. Nobody likes to hear that. So when people come to me and they say, I want to lose 50 pounds, I'm like, okay, that's cool. Put that aside. Let's talk about what really needs to happen, because that is not really what they're interested in. And I know it. You know why? Because they gained 50 pounds. So was it the number 50 that you finally said, you fat ass, or did they start thinking that at 45 pounds, or how about 40 pounds? So how
or
far
10
do we
pounds.
go? Yeah. How far do we go? So what I know for a fact, since I've already given you the statistics, that 7 out of 10 Americans are over fat, and I'm rounding up 5 out of 10 Americans. So 50% of the American population is clinically obese.
That's terrifying.
They don't care. They don't care enough. about that.
Enough. Yeah, they don't care enough. That's it.
And they go into their echo chambers. We go into the body positivity movement. We go into this healthy at every size, all of which I could easily debunk. And I need an hour to do that, but I could do it.
Yeah.
I could systematically debunk that. But the fact of the matter is, the first thing that I have to do, and oh my gosh, all my coaches, we have our coaches calls. We're talking about this stuff. We spend the first 4 or 5, maybe even sometimes 6 sessions with a client just resetting the way that they think about fitness, nutrition, and mindset and the habits that surround them. It is extremely difficult to cut through the social media bullshit. And the thing is that the reason that they hold on to it. So I have a terrible way of describing this. I'm going to tell you.
Is it another crack whore analogy?
No, it's close. It's close.
They're my favorite.
Okay. So I call it guarding your turds.
Okay.
So, right, social media is nothing but a big pile of shit. And you've got this big old dump sitting right there. And boy, you're protecting it. And you don't want anyone to clean that mess up because you want it. I'm like, no, it's shit. Why are you protecting it? I don't understand why people guard turds. It just
I didn't think we were going to go fecal. I really didn't. That was a surprise.
That makes sense, right? Because it's the excrement. It's the leftovers.
Right.
It's waste.
Look,
There's very little value in it.
When you say, when you say it's sticking out to me that people don't care enough about their obesity, even though, like you said, it's obesity related illnesses that is the leading cause of death right now in America. Is that, do you think, because there's this lack of accountability or this obsession with more like a gluttony? Like what is it that everybody's just accepted, like, oh, well, we're all fat?
I'm going to get canceled on my first episode. Well, how about this? When did the 7 deadly sins actually become something that people are proud of? Pride, gluttony, sloth, and the list goes on. These are things that are glorified.
All right. Do you think so? Do you think sloth is glorified?
7 out of 10 Americans are overfat.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's proof's in the pudding, right?
There are enough social indicators that are very clear that are showing that people no longer take their lives as seriously as they should.
No, it's so true. And I had a friend who is now no longer a friend. We just drifted apart mainly because the mentalities were so different, and I just can't keep having the same conversation 50,000 ways and and it not lead to anywhere, because I'm all about self-growth and development, and I'm there for you while you work through your shit. But if you don't ever actually work through it, we're just going on a merry-go-round and nobody moves forward. So I didn't have a falling out or anything, but yeah, we're just not in touch anymore. And they were very overweight, 300 pounds, tall dude, but 300 pounds or more. A lot of medical problems, diabetes, and a lot of other things going on, to the point where they were in hospital once with risk of amputation. Didn't have to get amputated, which was great. But the talk of the struggle of the weight and everything, me helping, providing so many simple meal plans, not even like a meal plan. Like, I didn't write it. I was like, look, let's look at what you're doing. All you need to do is not eat McDonald's once a day and you're going to lose weight. You're at that point. He was thinking I need to do this whole dramatic change to my life. But the truth is, when you're at that level and you're eating, 6,000 calories a day to maintain that, or whatever craziness it is, like, small changes equal big results for somebody at that level in terms of losing body fat, right?
The adaptation system. Yeah.
He didn't have to eat what I was eating. He didn't have to go that extreme. You can walk down the stairs one by one and get there. But never taking any of the steps, never, not once. Or, maybe being excited that he would lose 30 pounds in 2 weeks one time, which seems crazy. But when you're at that level, I guess it's not that hard if you restrict yourself. But then yo-yoing back up even more the next month. I just couldn't understand it. I just couldn't understand after all of the scares, and literally to the point of you're going to lose a limb. They're going to amputate your foot. How do you not take your health more seriously? Just take more drugs. Oh, the doctor gave me this prescription, so I should get it under control now.
Low effort, instant gratification, and a complete abdication of personal responsibility is a disease in our society. It's 3 things that we have to contend with. We have to find a way. And as Forge, that's one of the whole reasons that I even built this company, was because I saw a need. People need help, man. They need help.
Yes, they do. They do. They do. They need you. They need a forge in their life.
Yeah, but to your point though, I think this is the crux of the problem because he didn't listen.
It's a natural shift, right? Because every time we would talk, I'm coming at you with solutions and positive mentality. And at that point, he didn't want to hear that. He just wanted to
Yeah.
commiserate in the misery. And that's not what you get from me. If you come to me as your friend, I'm going to tell you what I think. I'm going to tell you that you're hurting yourself, that you're not being accountable, and that, yeah, listen to the doctors, but lose weight. Like the doctors are saying, lose weight. You got to lose weight. You're going to lose your foot or you're going to lose a few pounds. Pick one. And then you stop coming to me because I'm not telling you what you want to hear. I'm not your commiseration buddy.
Like I said earlier, misery loves company, and people actually want you to validate their bad behavior.
Correct.
So where do they go to get reinforcement? Social media echo chambers.
Mm.
They go to a place where other people positively reinforce deconstructive and potentially deadly behaviors of others for the sake of not hurting anyone's feelings, or to be socially acceptable, or to seem benevolent, and like that whole you go girl, or like, whatever, you do you.
It's so powerful. You're right, because it is potentially deadly. You as someone who's like a conscious person, not wanting to upset anybody, are you actually enabling someone closer towards an early death?
Well, I will tell you that the top body positivity, obese TikTok influencers are all dead.
Jeez, we should fact check that and post that because that is terrifying.
It is a significant and terrifying reality that we look for people to reinforce negative behavior because we live in a society that no one wants their feelings hurt. Thank you so much for joining Sarah and I on episode 1, part 1 of the Forge Fitness, Nutrition, and Habit podcast. We hope that you will continue on to part 2 of this episode because we're going to start off saucy and right away with some controversial topics. Sarah and I have a short debate about the difference between guilt, shame, which I contend is bullying on social media. I also believe that shame is necessary and it can be harnessed in a very positive way to instigate personal change, while Sarah has a slightly different point of view. We definitely get a little passionate as we work through our dialogue, and that's exactly what I'm hoping is going to be a hallmark of this show, meaning frank and thought-provoking conversation. We also discuss a simple 5-step process that you can take to vet the quality of nutrition advice on social media without having to spend hours and hours over textbooks and peer review articles. We also get into some sticky topics, social sticky topics like obesity and body positivity, and I just all think it's a putrid swamp of social media. Again, passion is going to be the theme here. So join us for part 2 and the conclusion of our inaugural episode. Please subscribe and share. We're going to be releasing shows at least weekly. And remember, the truth does hurt, so be ready.